This episode is brought to you by Nespresso Virtuo coffee machines. Ready to enjoy the bold flavors of barista-quality Nespresso iced coffee at home? Simply fill a glass with ice and press the brew button on your Virtuo pop machine to enjoy rich double espressos roasted to stand up even when chilled. Refreshingly bold iced coffee. Refreshingly easy to make at home. Visit Nespresso.com to shop now.
Quiet Riot. Hello, welcome to Quiet Riot Sunday School, the show that strips it back a bit. Fewer headlines, more reflection, and room to ask the kind of questions that don't always get airtime in our main show. It's still radical, just a little bit more reflective. Hallelujah. 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 I'm Kenny.
And I'm Naomi. How are you doing, Kenny? How's your week been?
Busy week with every piece of technology I own breaking, the car breaking, everything breaking. These things all come together.
It never rains, but it pours.
Oh, exactly. But I got to meet a very nice person, a very nice man in the Samsung shop at King's Cross. It was very helpful and didn't mock me at all for being an old doofer who has failed to do his backing up of data properly. So I've got a lot of learning to do over the next 3 days, involving HDMI cables, thumb drives, and humble pie. I think mostly humble pie. How's your week been?
Fine. We will not suspend you from Quiet Riot for your tech failure, unlike the Labour Party suspending MPs and removing trade envoy jobs away from some of them. That's been a big story, but I reckon rather than talk about that today, we should put that in the main show next week.
Yeah, it gives Keir Starmer time to mess things up even more, doesn't it, behind the scenes?
And, of course, there's also the issue of Diane Abbott, which deserves, I think, proper run-through rather than a kind of short thing that we might be able to squeeze into a Sunday school.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
Well, we are really looking forward to our Zoom call this afternoon with our lovely backers. We've got our Ask Us Anything live show after this Sunday school episode goes out. If you're not able to come along, you want to be able to come to the next one, head over to ko-fi.com/quietriotpod and sign up for as little as £5. And then you'll definitely be able to come along to the next one.
Today's one's at 4:00, so get yourself a chilled glass of wine or whatever your poison is and join us at 4 p.m. And I'll send out a little email reminder to everybody as well, just so you've got something to check. And don't forget to visit our bookshop to stock up on your summer reading before you head off on holiday. All our sales support local independent retailers and your favourite political podcast too.
We will leave a link in the show notes to that. Kenny, I think we need to crack on with today. What should we chat about? I thought maybe we could delve into the votes at 16 issue that Labour have announced and the backlash to that.
Definitely. And I'm kind of interested, sort of building on the episode with Christina Pagel. Listeners, if you haven't listened to that one, go back and hoover it up straight away. It's really worth a listen. So I want to check in on the latest goings on with alleged freedom of speech in the USA. Now that Stephen Colbert's Late Show has been cancelled.
Fab. Right, let's crack on.
Quiet Riot. No taxation without representation. That's how Keir Starmer is selling his major extension of the franchise to 16 and 17-year-olds.
I think it's really important that 16 and 17-year-olds have the vote because they're old enough to go out to work. They're old enough to pay taxes, so to pay in. And I think if you pay in, you should have the opportunity to say what you want your money spent on, which way the government should go. So I'm really pleased that we're able to bring more young people into our democracy and give them the chance to have a say over how their taxes are going to be paid.
Now, Labour's confirmed it will introduce legislation to give 16 and 17-year-olds the right to vote in general elections. The move, they say, is about strengthening democracy, empowering young people, and ensuring that those old enough to work, pay taxes, and join the armed forces also have a say in how the country is run. Not Everyone is thrilled, of course. Nigel Farage, never one to keep quiet, called the plan, and I quote, a shameless power grab. He warned that lowering the voting age is less about inclusion and more about tipping the electoral scales in Labour's favour. According to him, 16-year-olds are more likely to be influenced by schools, universities and social media, and that could spell trouble for the right. Let's have a listen.
The educational establishment is full of left-wing prejudice, is full of anti-reform bias. And frankly, if 16 to 18-year-olds at school are going to be able to vote, we're going to have to make sure that our education system is teaching kids to make their own minds up and not indoctrinating them.
Others, though, argue that this is long overdue and that young people today are more politically aware than ever, with a real stake in issues such as climate change, education and housing. So here's the big question. Are 16-year-olds ready to vote, or is this a step too far, too soon? So, Naomi, do you think 16-year-olds today are politically informed enough to vote responsibly, or do you think voting something that should come with a little bit more life experience?
Oh, I don't know that 75-year-olds and 65-year-olds are politically informed enough to vote, but they get the vote. So I am so all for this, I cannot even begin to tell you, Kenny. I'd love to know your views on it. It's something I've campaigned on for, 20, 25 years now. I am very, very firmly in favour of it. And Farage is saying that because you can't stand for Parliament until you're 18, you shouldn't be able to vote for your elected parliamentarian. And it's just nonsense, because most people aren't ever going to stand to be candidates, for God's sake. And young people do have far longer to live with the decisions that get made. And I think parties pander to their grandparents far too much. And I think this move is going to make all the political parties have to at least think about whether they offer anything at all to younger people. And I think Farage might be, wrong on this one. I don't know that young people will necessarily vote Labour. I don't think this is a move by Labour to increase their voter base. I think a lot of them will go Green. I think some of them will go Reform. I mean, there is plenty of evidence out there to suggest that young men in particular are quite Farage curious.
Yeah.
So I don't buy any of that. And I think if you're a Tory, you should get behind it, because this is all about installing a sense of civic duty in people young. And the younger they do that, the more established a pattern it will become for them and should carry them through life. So I just don't buy any of the arguments against it at all. I think it's a really, really good thing.
And there is the other point that I've always thought, that people at the ages of 16, 17, 18, for an awful lot of people who aren't such hardcore political geeks as some of us perhaps are, that age is actually when they're most knowledgeable about the political world. They've come out of the education system with perhaps the most interaction with politics in one way or another that they're ever going to have.
Or maybe the most interaction with the state that they might ever have.
Well, both are true, actually. And if you can't capture them then and get them into good habits, when on earth are you going to?
And also, it's ending the postcode lottery. You're Scottish, and Scotland is way ahead. So is Wales. Young people have had the vote there for quite a long time now. So if you're 16 or 17 in Wales and Scotland, you can vote in Senedd and Holyrood elections and local elections. And my God, it's time England caught up with that too. It's mad that you have to wait an extra 2 years just because of where you live.
I mean, that's a very good point. I mean, Scotland introduced votes for 16 and 17-year-olds way back in 2014. I'd only just left newspapers. It's a long time ago.
You'd only just turned 18.
I'd only just, and that's just my IQ. I had a quick look at what the findings from allowing younger people to vote, both in Scotland and Wales, were. Turnout in the 2014 independence referendum north of the border was 75% among 16 and 17-year-olds, only 54% among 18 to 24-year-olds. It's a huge difference, a huge positive difference in terms of the numbers that turned out. In Wales, they're not the same at all. Registration among 16 and 17-year-olds in Wales dropped by over 9% between 2023 and 2024. The data presents a mixed picture.
Globally, when you look at the data, it shows that it drives up turnout. So countries with a larger franchise have higher turnout at election time. And my goodness, we need that. What did we have? A general election last year where the turnout was barely half of what it should be. And we're getting people elected on 30% of the vote with a very small turnout on the election itself. So, I mean, anything that can improve democracy by encouraging more people into it and lowering the barriers to entry to participate in democracy, I think has got to be important. And don't forget, we've also seen worrying polling trends beginning to suggest that young people are no longer really seeing the virtue of democracy. Again, if you're freezing them out from all decision making, then I can kind of begin to understand why they might lean towards those tendencies. So I don't think it's a silver bullet in terms of fixing the ills of our constitutional arrangement, but it's going to do very little harm, I think. And hey, I'll come back on the show and eat humble words if every single person aged 12 and 13 now who gets to vote at the next election when they turn 16, 17 comes out and backs horror candidates. But I think we've got to encourage it.
Well, I mean, Farage says that it's a political move designed to favour Labour. You know, he would do, I suppose. Do you think giving younger people the vote is more about democracy or about strategy, or perhaps a little bit of both?
Well, it was in the Labour manifesto. So at some time or other, they judged that this would either be the right thing to do or the politically advantageous thing to do, and they're doing it. All I really care about is the fact that it's getting done.
Yeah.
And I really, really hope that mainstream parties will now think, all right, rather than all of us crowding around trying to chase an ever dwindling aged vote, we are going to turn our attentions to future generations, trying to foster some loyalty with much younger people that could maybe stick with those parties for the rest of their working life and beyond, by actually coming up with things that will be good for them. And when we look at, some of the stuff Labour's doing around housing, around workers' rights, around minimum wage, these are all things that you would hope younger people would be much more sympathetic to than, say, things like reopening coal power stations and, scrapping net zero targets, etc. So I really would love to see that. I think the Lib Dems in particular don't offer young people anything really obvious at the moment. When I think about when I was young, they were offering things like scrapping tuition fees and legalizing cannabis and changing the voting system and being against the Iraq War. And it's really easy to know, why they might appeal to younger people and do particularly well in student seats, university seats with high student populations. I don't think that's quite so true for them anymore. I think it's really important that parties try to think about future voters and the wider electorate rather than simply middle-aged and older cohort of voters and oftentimes men, actually.
Absolutely true. I mean, let me ask you something. We already trust 16-year-olds with some pretty big responsibilities, working, paying taxes, joining the military. Why do you think voting has been off limits until now?
Oh, because we've had dominance of the most successful political party in the world, the Conservative Party, for, the last 2 centuries in politics in the UK. They are now almost facing oblivion by the looks of many of their poll ratings, but it served them to conserve the status quo. Now, we did extend the franchise during that period, of course, to many different groups of people, women, for instance, but most notably the change in age from 21 down to 18 about 40, 50 years ago. So things have changed slowly. I think it's way overdue that people who are taxed, if they earn enough, get to be represented. It's just not been high on anybody's priority list because it hasn't served their interests.
I mean, I'm fascinated to see what it means for schools, actually, because it presents a whole bunch of challenges for schools in terms of, apart from anything else, questions around political neutrality, And you can see there's a whole basket of issues that could be thrown into the spotlight by this decision.
Come on. They haven't in Scotland and Wales. They haven't in other countries. This is, I think another straw man argument against it. Of course, we need better citizenship studies and political education for young people. You can't do politics GCSE, for instance, in the UK. It's not a thing. There are all sorts of extra bits of information that can and should be provided to children. Mock elections should become a bigger feature of debating societies in all sorts of schools, etc. But we're not out there educating our age group on anything. You've got to go looking for it yourself. I just think if the logic holds, it's got to hold for every cohort.
Yeah. I'm thinking back to what political stuff I had in school, and it's a long time ago in the sort of late 70s. And now I might be wrong on this, but I think my economics teacher was the chair of the local Labour Party. I'm a modern studies, which is essentially politics. My modern studies teacher, I think, was the deputy chair of the local Labour Party. There would have been mischief to have been made there. That's
and
for sure.
How did your constituency vote? Lib Dem?
It was back then. It's a very sort of Lib Dem / SNP area. But it was engaging. The discussions that we had at that level were, there was a lot of banter, but it was properly engaging stuff. It wasn't all about reading books and learning how Parliament works. There was proper real life discussions and name calling as well. I got called
I got called Paddy
face.
Pants Down. It was the 1992 general election, and we did a mock election at my primary school, and I was the Lib Dem candidate, and I got called Paddy Pants Down because he'd just been caught having that affair. And I got bullied at school, and it made me cry.
Oh no! Well, if it makes you feel any better, I was just saying, I had a debate about whether or not there were elements of Thatcherism that perhaps we might want to consider as not being just the spawn of the devil.
In Scotland in the 1970s.
Yeah, exactly. It's all very well to come up with these thoughts, but sometimes they should remain as thoughts. And as a result, my economics teacher...
Black eyes and a broken nose.
Yeah, and he called me fascist face. And that was my name in the class. Hello, fascist face. What are you doing now? That was my introduction to politics. It's not a place for a shy, retiring person like me. That's for sure.
Quiet Riot. Now, this episode is sponsored by Shopify.
Why Shopify? Well, when we started Quiet Riot, there was so much we had to figure out on our own. Even though we'd both got plenty of experience appearing on podcasts, starting our own from scratch threw up a lot of challenges, from finding studios and designing logos to wrestling with contracts and dealing with platforms.
And on a show like this, the to-do list, I can assure you, is never, ever done, and getting help is essential. Otherwise, the process of creating the show can drain the joy of putting out a podcast that we are so proud of.
For some challenges, that means reaching out to friends who can point us in the right direction, hopefully with a smile and an encouraging pat on the back. But for others, you just need the right tool for a particular job.
For millions of businesses, one of those tools is Shopify. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world, from household names like Mattel and Gymshark to brands like ours just getting started. As we're developing our thinking about Quiet Riot branded merchandise, Shopify was the first name that came to mind to manage the whole process for us.
It's straightforward enough to get started with your own design studio. With hundreds of ready-to-use templates, Shopify can help you build a beautiful online store to match your brand's style.
It can accelerate your content creation too. Shopify is packed with helpful tools that help you write product descriptions, page headlines, and even enhance your product photography.
Plus, you can get the word out like you have a marketing team behind you. It's easy to create email and social media campaigns wherever your customers are, scrolling or strolling.
Best of all, Shopify is your commerce expert with world-class expertise in everything from managing inventory to international shipping to processing returns and more. If you're ready to sell, you're ready for Shopify.
So turn your big business idea into with Shopify on your side. Sign up for your £1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.co.uk/quietriot. Go to shopify.co.uk/quietriot. That's shopify.co.uk/quietriot.
One of the other things I wanted to talk about was the bill itself and other things that are in it. At Best for Britain, when the Tories introduced the voter ID requirement in the last Parliament, and they were trying to get us all to have to turn up with our driving licence and passport, we did a really big campaign against that and saying it should not only be those forms of photographic ID. You are disproportionately going to dampen people that don't have recourse to that kind of ID. Not everyone's going to know to apply for the free one through their local authority, etc. And Labour seems to have listened, and they are, in this bill, going to propose an extension to the photographic ID to include bank cards and other things. I mean, you might remember at the time we talked about it that it was madness that an old person's rail card was an acceptable form of ID at the ballot box. Young person's rail card was not. So hopefully there's going to be even more equalisation across the board on that kind of stuff. They are, of course, also introducing tougher rules against foreign political interference and a load of stuff around abuse of campaigners. So trying to protect people that are doing their civic duty by putting themselves forward for election. Now, what's not in it is electoral reform. The big, elephant in the room. Labour have, in a different bill, said that they will go to a more proportionate voting system for mayoral elections across the UK. So undoing the changes again that the Tory party did, switching all of those to first past the post last time round. So there is some welcome stuff in there, but of course there is this big gaping problem that Labour, despite its membership overwhelmingly backing electoral reform and its voters not wanting to go for PR for Westminster elections just yet.
In your blood, do you think that we're as close as we've ever been in our lifetimes, though, to at least somewhere on the horizon seeing a genuine opportunity for wholesale reform of the electoral system, particularly for general elections in this country? Or do you think that we're doomed for the rest of our lives?
Well, it's a great question. You've got the Tory party struggling in the polls. They may well say, actually, PR sounds like quite a good idea for us right now. You've got Reform UK, will we, won't we back PR, having through successive versions of itself, whether UKIP, Brexit Party or Reform, been pro-PR. But, if they win under a first past the post system, maybe they will draw the ladder up behind them and say, no, we're first past the posters now, guys.
Yeah.
So I don't know. As the polls stand at the moment, with no party being able to command an overall majority, I would hope that any minority party propping up another government, either through a coalition agreement or confidence and supply arrangement, would make PR a red line for entering that arrangement. So who knows?
Fingers crossed.
Maybe we are closer than ever. But look, a general election is a way off, and Labour aren't going to push it through on a legislative basis ahead of the next election, no.
Though if it's a close election, and we all know what the chances of that are at the moment.
Indeed.
16 and 17-year-olds across the country, I think, are about roughly 3% of the potential voting population. So it's not huge, but it's not an insignificant number if things are really nip and tuck. So
and of course, they're highly concentrated in certain seats.
Yeah.
So places like Bradford, which is dubbed the youngest city in Europe or something, has a very high proportion of people that will be entering the electorate. I would imagine parts of rural Scotland probably quite a bit lower.
Yeah, exactly that. I think overall in Scotland the figure's lower as well. I mean, talking to places like Bradford, what do you think the main issues are that 16 and 17-year-olds in a place like that, in fact anywhere, care about? Do you think there's any chance that their priorities would change the political conversation if they had the vote?
I think climate is a really big one for young
Yeah.
people across the board. You will find very, very few of them that don't believe it is a man-made catastrophe that requires urgent action. So hopefully we will see the net zero issue coming back up the agenda rather than down it, and that consensus that we all thought we'd reached that has subsequently been broken because of reform by the Tories too would no longer hold, and we'd get back to a much more sensible debate about that. But broadly, I think young people are, pretty diverse in terms of their outlooks, as many average voters of other ages. I think you'll see patterns across the country, local issues affecting them. Young people do tend to have a stronger sense of social justice. We are typically looking at younger people getting more right wing with age, with the exception of millennials who seem to be sticking with being as progressive as they always were. So we don't know. I just think that we've got to listen to them more. Their futures are longer than ours. They have to live with any decision that gets made by any government for a much longer period of time. They are a generation that are looking down the barrel of high cost of living, an NHS that may not be there for them by the time they retire, or even maybe by the time they have children in its current state, with extraordinarily high costs for higher education, should they wish to pursue that, and pretty low wages if they're going straight into work. So I think all of those issues are echoed in the public at large, as things people care about. What do you think? Do you think there are sort of particular issues that Scotland had to reconsider in light of extending the franchise to younger people?
People of our age know what the impact of an aging population is, and we know the risks globally. And I'm not entirely sure that you don't have to spend a few years on the planet before you realize that actually this is something that's going to impact you, even if you're only 16 or 17 right now. I'm hopeful that sort of discussion will start to become more mainstream among younger people, because the costs of running a social care system for an aging population are already out of control. The system is incredibly broken, and it's something that affects every one of us. But if you're just coming in to your early 20s in the next few years, it's a dreadful challenge. And if you pile on top of that the fact that the middle classes, as we used to call them, have become more and more squeezed in the last 20 years, we've got a budget coming up that's probably going to squeeze them even more. Who knows whether inheritance tax is going to become a headline generator again. What we do know is that the tax burden is going to increase. It has to. So younger people are in a position where it's already a difficult world to live in. By the time they get to the age of retirement, it's going to be in some ways an impossible burden that they have to bear. So I'm hoping that sort of conversation, full life conversations, if you like, will come to the fore, and we don't fall into the trap of just thinking that young people talk about things like social equality and the environment, things that are important, but aren't the only things that are important, if that makes sense. One other question. Do you think, with your optimistic hat on, that getting 16 and 17-year-olds involved would increase political engagement overall? Or is there a risk it could backfire if young people feel sort of pressured or overwhelmed by politics too soon?
I don't think the evidence is there to suggest that will happen. We're not introducing automatic voting or, compulsory voting. So if they want to opt out of it, they can do, as many older young people have done. The missing millions from the electoral database, the electoral roll, is, I think, nearly 8 million at the Electoral Commission's last count. And in not insignificant chunk of those are young people missing from it already. So there will need to be an active push to get people registered to vote, and automatic voter registration may or may not make it through this piece of legislation. So I think if we get them engaged through better education, more outreach by the political parties and candidates vying for their votes, then there is every reason to believe that they will try to engage with it and not sort of feel overwhelmed by it. But we're all overwhelmed by politics. We're all completely done with it at Best for Britain. And this is a sneaky peeky bit of, I have not yet released this. So this is, I'm not really meant to be talking about it at all. But what I can say is we've done some polling that kind of shows it's not just trust that's broken with politics. It's that there is active disgust and despair.
Right.
People have actually moved on from, I don't trust political parties, politicians, government, to sort of active disgust towards the political class. I don't want that to infect younger people, but it will if the politicians themselves don't change their rhetoric, their behaviour, their transparency, their accountability. And we sort of need all of that to heap pressure on the political classes to clean up their act.
That's interesting. I know I can't push you for more details. I'd love to know more details on that bit of research, but
I promise to tell Quiet Riot all when I can.
it's interesting that you talk about how disgusted people are. I mean, it's a very pejorative term, but I kind of take the view that I would be horribly disappointed if there wasn't growing disgust, disdain, and demoralisation, and what they call north of the border the scunner factor with politics, because there's nothing else that's going to change it. You need that. You need that engine of emotion in the electorate of all ages if we're ever to have any chance of shaking up the system that we've got here and, in other countries as well. But here's a good place to start. I think strong emotions and words like disgust are a good thing. They're a sign that people do give a damn, even if we're not where we need to be with the system right yet.
Quiet Riot. Now, this is an advertisement from BetterHelp. Thanks to them for sponsoring today's show. If you're in a full-time job, you won't need me to remind you that you spend about a third of your life doing that job. That's about 90,000 hours in an average lifetime. The chances are that a fair part of that time is stressful in one way or another. In fact, something like 1 in 8 sick days is blamed on mental health conditions, and globally, getting on for 2/3 of workers endure abnormal stress levels. As someone who's run a team of several hundred people, I know only too well just how stress can impact in the workplace. And I also know that it's not that easy to manage. Even time away from the office can be affected, and if you've ever had a holiday ruined by work stress, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. To battle stress, we can start small, with a focus on wellness, a lunchtime stroll in the sun rather than a sandwich at the desk, or taking the stairs rather than the lift. And don't forget that therapy can help you navigate whatever challenges the workday or any day might bring. Chatting with an expert can equip you with coping skills and help you set boundaries. And remember, it's not just for those who've experienced major trauma. It really can help us deal with the daily workplace challenges that so often grind us down. Which brings us to BetterHelp, which, as well as having more than 5,000 therapists in the UK, is also the world's largest online therapy platform, having served more than 5 million people. It's popular. An App Store rating of 4.9 out of 5 tells its own story, and BetterHelp makes it incredibly easy to fit therapy into your busy life. As the largest online therapy provider in the world, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a diverse variety of expertise. Unwind from work with BetterHelp. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/quietriot. That's betterhelp.com/quietriot.
Quiet Riot. Kenny, now let's jump into something that has been over the headlines for the last day or so, but maybe not for the reasons we'd hope. CBS has cancelled The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, and at face value, it might look like just another network reshuffling its lineup, but there is more to it. The news came right after the network quietly reached a $16 million settlement related to President Donald Trump, and The Late Show was named in the case. Let's have a listen to a very unhappy Colbert.
While I was on vacation, my parent corporation, Paramount, paid Donald Trump a $16 million settlement over his 60 Minutes lawsuit. As someone who has always been a proud employee of this network, I am offended. And I don't know if anything will ever repair my trust in this company. But just taking a stab at it, I'd say $16 million would help. This settlement is for a nuisance lawsuit Trump filed claiming that 60 Minutes deceptively edited their interview with then-candidate Kamala Harris last fall. Paramount knows they could have easily fought it because, in their own words, the lawsuit was completely without merit. And keep in mind, Paramount produced Transformers: Rise of the Beast. They know completely without merit. Now, unlike the payoffs from ABC and Twitter, Paramount's settlement did not include an apology. Instead, that's good. Instead, the corporation released a statement where they said, "You may take our money, but you will never take our dignity. You may, however, purchase our dignity for the low, low price of $16 million. We need the cash."
So what was the case about? A former staffer claimed they were retaliated against after raising concerns about how Trump was being portrayed on the show, suggesting there were deeper tensions behind the scenes about how much political heat a comedy show could carry. Now, Colbert is not known for holding back, especially when it comes to Trump. So it does raise some questions. Did this settlement make Colbert a liability for the network? Is it really about ratings, or is it about risk? And what happens when comedy, criticism, and corporate interest collide? And Kenny, that is where you come in. Your PR guru hat on. I've got questions for you. Do you think the timing of the show's cancellation right after the $16 million Trump-related settlement is a coincidence, or is there actually far more to it if you read between the
lines? Coincidence? No way, Jose. Not by any stretch of anybody's imagination is a coincidence.
I mean, how much of an institution is The Late Show?
It's huge, and if you're a political geek like me, Stephen Colbert, Jon Stewart, there are 3 or 4 must-watch satire specialists with huge teams behind them coming out of the States. It's like catnip to me on YouTube. I'm gutted. I kind of saw it coming because of the merger that's sitting behind this decision.
What's the merger? Sorry, I don't know.
The merger that I'm talking about is CBS's parent, Paramount, and they've got a long gestating deal with Skydance. Skydance is a media company controlled by somebody called David Ellison. He happens to be the son of a guy called Larry Ellison, who is the billionaire behind Oracle. It's just lots of rich tech media people again.
Like Succession.
Yeah, it is like that. Machinations over that planned merger have got very, very political. And that's why CBS ponied up $16 million towards Trump's future presidential library. And that's the same library that's also now got a 747 from the Middle East. It's going to be a very wealthy library, that one. Paramount entered into a settlement agreement in a row over how an interview had been edited, and Trump and his people got angry, and it cost Paramount rather $16 million. So they caved. There's no two ways about it.
But if you settle, why do you have to cancel the show?
Well, 2 reasons. One, and this is why it's not a coincidence, the show's not cancelled immediately. It's still going to run for the best part of a year. Paramount bosses could have said, look, we are going to bin this show, but let's give it a few months and we can make the announcement once the $16 million row has passed, or perhaps once we've managed to get our merger over the line. And the fact that they've done it right now, within days of the $16 million payoff, makes it quite clear to me, at least, that this is a sacrifice in plain sight. It's quite simply a sacrifice for the media age, but a sacrifice all the same. Stephen Colbert and his show have been sacrificed at this time for political reasons. Now, there's another side to the story, of course, and that is that late night TV is not a place that you want to be if you hope to make profits now. So
Right.
when CBS say, look, this show is costing us a fortune to make and advertising revenues are cratering in this part of the market, they're absolutely spot on. All the big shows coming out of the States have got gloom and clouds over them because they're all losing money. I saw some figures earlier this week from a data firm called Guideline, and they'd estimated that the network's late night shows, there's quite a few of them, back in 2018 had earned something like $439 million in ad revenue. You know, big money, well, almost $500 million. Fast forward to 2024, that had halved.
Do we know why? Is it just general money not going into TV?
Yeah, TV's a very bad place to be anyway, and advertising money has been running away from it from a long time.
I mean, watch out, Richard Osman and Marina Hyde. Clearly, Quiet Riot is going to give This Is Entertainment a run for its money with this level of intel.
The secret is to keep your costs really, really low. I think that's the way to do it.
Well, it's why things like Come Dine With Me have run for so long.
That's
They
right.
are so incredibly cheap to produce.
Cheap TV is everybody's friend if you happen to be a producer. And you fill your time and you don't have to bother about the accounting side. But the scripting teams and the production teams they've got on these American shows are substantial. These shows have big production numbers a lot of the time and substantial script teams. The quality
the writing
of work
rooms can be like 20 people, can't
easily,
they?
absolutely easily, and
Yeah.
and they have to be because they're reacting on the day, to breaking news, tearing scripts up at the last minute sometimes, particularly with somebody like Trump, who
Tell me about it as a podcast scripter.
And you go, the orange clown has been in the toilet and he's been tweeting again.
Well, let's get back to the US. So thinking about that conversation we had with Christina Pagel this week about the increasing authoritarian takeover of the USA, I want to ask you about, where does this fit within all of that? Like, is cancelling The Late Show in some ways even more of a sign of American democracy dying than like any of the Supreme Court corruption? Because the projection of America's cultural power and the kind of thing that leads overly earnest people to like think that the West Wing is what reality is, kind of maintains the idea of America being special. So, like, where do you think the cancelling of this show fits within this authoritarian creep, or do you kind of come down more on the side of financial corporate interest?
No, I think the two go hand in hand. It's the world we live in. It's not the world we choose to live in, perhaps, but it is the world that we live in. And there are both commercial decisions that have to be made and political decisions that have to be made and creative decisions that have to be made as well. And those three elements can sit very, very uncomfortably together sometimes, this being one of these times in point when the political side and the commercial side have come together and overwhelmed the creative side. Nobody apart from Trump, let's make that point, is saying that these shows are anything other than really top drawer, fantastic entertainment if you like your politics and if you like your humor. Let's remember that democracy isn't just about one person, one vote. That's not how it is. Democracy requires civil liberties, including free speech. Your basic First Amendment stuff. Democracy requires accountability, and that accountability includes necessarily a free media, free to a point anyway. Democracy requires rule of law. This is important stuff.
And all of it's being eroded. What do you think that comedy, satire, especially Colbert's brand of political satire, why does it make powerful people like Trump feel so uncomfortable?
That's a good question.
Because it portrays a brittleness.
It does.
Strong leaders and confident leaders can weather all of that stuff.
Well, I was going to just say that. I mean, there are a couple of reasons that occurred to me just off the top of my head. One is that this sort of approach highlights when a powerful individual is unable to laugh at themselves. I happen to think that that's a huge sign of weakness, and as you put it, brittleness. The narcissism that Trump's demonstrated his entire life, really, it's not a surprise that he's a man that struggles to laugh at himself. He struggles not to sneer at everybody else. It seems sometimes absolutely everybody else, but he can't laugh at himself. He doesn't have that. And I think that will make even somebody like him uncomfortable, because it could be seen as a weakness. And let's remember, comedy can cause real damage. Comedians doing their job at the top of their game really can make a difference. I'm trying to think of an example. Actually, listeners of a particular vintage will remember the original series of Spitting Image way back in 1980s, it must have been. And back then, one of the most famous sets of sketches had Dr. David Owen with little Diddy
David Steele
in his pocket. And, a nice little bit of a visual gag about David Steele being in David Owen's pocket. There was nothing subtle about it. And David Steele hated that. He blamed it for all sorts of political damage that was caused to him, personally, because it struck a chord.
And it became a meme that got repeated, and
Yep.
you would then also have that repeated. I mean, until very recently, I remember seeing it as a Tory attack ad against Labour, but also against the SNP in Scotland, where you'd have one politician sitting in the top pocket of the other.
Yeah.
So it didn't just hurt the person it was pointed at the time. It kind of sparked a rhetoric.
I love the idea it was a meme 20 years before memes were a thing. Well done, Spitting Image, you're time travelers.
Should networks protect shows that challenge power, even if it means taking heat themselves, or in spite of the cost of running a show like that? Or is it kind of fair for them to back off when legal and financial risks show up, because they are profit-making organizations after all?
Well, with my angry hat on, my journalist hat on, I'd go, yes, of course, you should protect your teams at all costs. That's not how the real world works. I was on a panel last night. We were talking about, amongst other things, AI and journalism and media. And one point that occurred to me that I made was that it's important for us to remember that journalism is not the same thing as running a media platform. And the sort of people that run media platforms tend to be very different from the Gagans of the world, let's just say, from the proper investigative, old school, dyed-in-the-wool, hardcore journalists. It's a very different world. It's a very different skill set. And the two sit uneasily sometimes. Now, Colbert, if we pull it back to him, wasn't really doing journalism. Colbert does commentary, and he does commentary really, really very, very well indeed. Even leaving Trump out of it, though, the financial realities of the late-night TV market in America and the TV market globally, actually, we're going to catch up with the production costs one way or another. Other big shows will be watching this very, very nervously.
Right, so it was a convenient excuse.
Yeah.
We've
it would have
gone
happened
too far,
eventually anyway.
We've cost ourselves money. We've had to settle. And so, look, we were probably going to end up doing this anyway. Let's just bring it forward.
Yeah, exactly that.
Right.
Unless you've got somebody at the top of a network who is invested personally in the brand of a particular show or a particular presenter, and they think that the costs are worth bearing.
Right, like Murdoch has run loss-making papers.
Exactly.
Because he wants to control the media narrative.
Quiet Riot. If you've shopped online, chances are you've bought from a business powered by Shopify. You know that purple Shop Pay button you see at checkout? The one that makes buying so incredibly easy? That's Shopify. And there's a reason so many businesses sell with it. Because Shopify makes it incredibly easy to start and run your business. Shopify is the commerce platform behind 10% of all e-commerce in the US. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/promo. Go to shopify.com/promo.
Quiet Riot. Let's stick with Trump as well, because there has, of course, been other people poking fun at him and making accusations of him. The UK has, of course, hosted Macron and Merz in the last week, but the Donald is set to arrive soon, with all the horrible tension that is going to stir up. campaigners, brilliant campaigners, are already drawing up protest plans, including buying up huge billboards with that photo of Trump and Jeffrey Epstein looking cozy displayed on them. And the Wall Street Journal has published details of a letter from Trump to Epstein on his 50th birthday. It was framed by the outline of a naked woman and shows what was then the future president's signature in a squiggly Donald below her waist, mimicking pubic hair. And the letter concludes, "Happy birthday. May every day be another wonderful secret." Blech. Trump, of course, is backpedaling big time. Let's have a quick listen to him.
It's all been a big hoax. It's perpetrated by the Democrats, and some stupid Republicans and foolish Republicans fall into the net.
And his former Vice President Mike Pence disagrees.
I think the time has come for the administration to release all of the files regarding Jeffrey Epstein's investigation and prosecution. It's important that we protect the names of the victims. They should be excluded from any disclosure. But whether or not the facts justify charges, I think that anyone who participated or was associated with this despicable man ought to be held up to public scrutiny.
So, Kenny, as we wrap up the show, MAGA is tearing itself in half over this, it seems. Yeah. Those that are like, no, he said he would release the Epstein files. What's he got to hide? Just get them out there. And those saying, oh, this is all a hoax. Donald's right. Nothing to see here. Stick with the Donald. And my question to you is, why do you think Trump made such a big thing about potentially releasing the Epstein list while campaigning when it was so obviously going to be a gift to his opponents?
I mean, that's a cracking PR question, because it was painfully obvious that this at some point was kind of inevitably going to come and bite him on the backside.
He knew the photos were there. He knew he'd sent this letter.
But I mean, what we probably need to remember is that for some of the loudest voices that back Trump, the Epstein case is not just about the horrible allegations and the horrible crimes committed by Epstein. There's a much bigger conspiracy theory that drives hardcore MAGA people, and it's a major strain of MAGA thought. And for a lot of people, the Epstein debacle has become part of a much broader and probably more fictional set of stories. Things like, Pizzagate, that claim that there's a child sex abuse ring coming out of a Washington pizza parlor. And, places like QAnon, where there's, sprawling interactive conspiracy theories that would have us believe that the world is being run by an elite satanic cabal. Trump had to play into that. And he did. He leaned into it big time. There was a MAGA influencer called Jack Posobiec, I might have mispronounced his name, who was at the center of the Pizzagate story back in the day. And he was talking about this very thing in one of his podcasts. And he made the point that Trump supporters don't care about Epstein personally, but they care that there's an optic that Epstein was somehow involved with this shadowy system that in actual fact has control over our governments and control over our institutions, control over our lives, and is a ruling malevolent power over all of us. And he's just one of a whole pile of MAGA influencers who normally will back wholeheartedly anything that Trump does or Trump says or Trump threatens. But they are now incredibly annoyed, furious, in fact, with the Trump administration. And that's why they're asking tough questions about the Epstein case. It's not necessarily because they give a damn about the horrible crimes that were committed, but they do give a damn about this huge conspiracy theory that has driven so much of Trump's support in recent years.
And Kenny, we can't not talk about Murdoch and what's happening there. He too is facing a lawsuit.
Yeah, I mean, the story, as is the way with Trump's stories, is still breaking as we're recording this on Friday. but it's to do with the body card to Jeffrey Epstein that Trump was alleged to have sent. And the Wall Street Journal reported that Trump's name was on the card. Trump himself has said that this is rubbish. It's false, it's malicious, and it's defamatory, and has started to go, if not full scorched earth, has certainly started to throw rocks in the direction of his one-time alleged buddy, Rupert Murdoch. So there's a huge story building there in media world and Trump world, even as we speak.
So he's just trying to sue everyone that is making a claim that he was part of the pedophile ring of Jeffrey Epstein, rather than just proving his innocence by publishing the files.
Yeah, and at the same time, he's also asking for the release of court documents relating to Epstein. Now, the suspicion will be that either these documents are going to be redacted to pieces, or who knows what will have happened to them. But Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, she has said that they're ready to unseal grand jury transcripts today. That's Friday. It might take a little bit of time for a judge to actually get round to releasing the documents, but it looks like something's happening over there. So this is all starting to spiral very much out of control.
And what does it mean for the UK if he's about to come over and have to be glad-handed and, fawned over in whatever obsequious, ridiculous way we feel we have to do? And I say we as the royal we.
Yeah.
I will be out protesting. Don't you doubt it.
There'll be two of us.
But this literally would be like giving Jimmy Savile a knighthood the day before you find out that he was the most prolific sex abuser of young people for 4 decades on TV. Or, how do you play it if there is an emerging issue that could potentially really frame Trump in the worst possible light, but before it has actually come about, and you're desperately still trying to get deals on ethanol with him and, steel and whatever else. This is an incredibly difficult diplomatic play for the UK government.
Do you know what I would do if I was Sir Keir, or indeed King Charles?
Oh, forget about King Charles. He's got loads of experience of having a wrong one in the family with his little brother.
If I was Starmer, I'd be arranging a meeting with my good friend cousin COVID right now. I'd be taking myself right out of the picture altogether. I wouldn't want to be in the same video shots. I wouldn't want to be in the same headlines. I'd want to be in my bed with the covers pulled over my head going, not me, not this time, not happening, mate.
I can't see Ange stepping up to help him out.
Quiet Riot.
Okay, Naomi, we've got an Ask Us Anything session to prepare for, so let's call time on this week's Sunday School now.
Indeed, we do. Listeners, thank you so much for lending us your time today. We hope you enjoyed the show. We'll see you again on Thursday. And hopefully we're going to see some of you later this afternoon.
Yay, and don't forget to sign up to ko-fi.com/Quiet Riot Pod to get access to live chats, our Discord channel, and a whole heap more.
And if you can't stretch to that, be a good egg and share your favourite episode with a pal.
We love you lots. Bye.
Bye.
Quiet Riot is an audio production by Cooler Heads with Naomi Smith and Alex Andreou. Produced by Kenny Campbell. Music by Mariana Sangeeta. Artwork by Simona Canelu. And edited by me, Alex Reese. Quiet Riot is a co-production with Sandstone Global.
Quiet Riot.
With so many options, why choose Arizona State University?
For me, the only online option was ASU because of the quality. Their faculty was really involved with their students and care about your personal journey. The dedication to my personal development from my professors, that's been extremely valuable to me.
Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Explore more than 350 plus undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.